tonight I looked up something about communication, about people dealing with each other, talk, communicate with each other. That's a situation when misunderstandings, shortcomings, um, possible if we feel we are in a different universe. So these kind of things happen when we talk to each other. It's normal. But the question is, how do we deal with it? How get we out of such a situation so that we can understand each other, go together rather than against each other, that we are able to inspire each other? And our title is uh, a mistake culture or error culture for hypersensitivity. And as Theodor says, I'm a farmer, and uh, I've been working scientifically for many years, and in adult education have worked very practically, practice with people who are hypersensitive, look at their awareness, their capacity for perception, for really subtle nuances in their environment and nature. As a farmer, I've worked with plants and animals, and so I work with people in courses, but also with individuals. I asked that at the beginning we should start by doing eurythmy together, having movement. We chose 2 letters, and Theodor and I thought they go well with this topic, the E and S. And I could now ask myself, why did you do that? You won't have enough time. But the wish is there that together we enter into an experience that carries us through the evening, and that I can relate to or refer to while I'm going to speak for a longer period of time. Now, over to Theodor. Thank you very much. I will try and respond to your wish. I invite everyone who wants to join in, either standing up or in sitting, to just join in inwardly. Let's take 7 minutes. So one doesn't have to be perfect. We just touch on something. Things respond if they notice that I'm trying to make contact. And the archetypal mantra in eurythmy is, I take time to arrive within myself. And in this space, if I take time, then things can happen. So we usually put our hands on top of each other. I take time to arrive within myself. And then this is like an exercise. I try and feel this inwardly. Do I manage that my inside responds to this? I feel I am touched, and then I let this sink down. And once more, something where I notice my letting go doesn't let me collapse, but it makes me stand upright. It strengthens me inwardly. Even the heels become lighter. Simone said we do an E, the letter E. If we turn that into a gesture in eurythmy, then the E I take from left and right, and then I cross my arms in a way that the lower arms touch and the fingers are relatively straight, as a sign of demarcation. If you let your hands hang down, your fingertips, then feel your body and stretch out your fingers. And maybe see if your body responds to this. Then let go again and stretch them again. and you notice this stretching. With the stretching, you notice you come to a boundary. In the encounter, a boundary is important, and E creates this boundary. Now I take my right hand, I take the hand and move it from the right to the left, and I let the E radiate out into the other corner, to this left corner, and then I let go. And what is on the left, I now bring along, and how do I send it through the arm into this corner? That means I don't swap the things over. So from right to left, from left to right, and I send the one to this side, the other I send to that side. And I try to sense how my body picks this up somehow. So inside I can also feel this movement somehow. And maybe one more element of the E. We do this to create a boundary, but a fence is there to maybe meet with the neighbor and have a chat. So take one arm close to the body and the other further away. And now you slowly move the outward hand towards you until you notice they meet each other, they touch. And then let go again. Then maybe the other hand from the outside. And suddenly, instead of a boundary, we have an encounter. And how much pressure do I need so that it is not a struggle, but an encounter? And then in eurythmy, we have something else. The arm gestures are always a symbol of what happens inside. If you do it once more, outer, inner, letting them come together, and then this pressure, how does that have to be so that it is pleasant? And do I feel what is in my hands? Do I feel that also inside? Does it do something with me? And then let go. And the question is, how do I have to tune myself so that there is a response? If we do it once more with one hand from the right to the left, and then radiate across. That is assigned to Mars, to Scorpio. So that is somehow also in the S gesture. Look at the hand up there, and I do an S line downwards in front of the body. And then you notice there is a taking things to the other side. I start from the right, go to the left, and then I cross from above downwards, and then maybe even from outward to inward. So I go into the depth, and maybe when that happens, something happens inside too. Let's do it with the other hand, crossing over, downwards, and crossing out from outside inside, and with the E, there is a radiating at the end. Try again with the E from one side, and then the light radiates across. Then with the E from the other side, bringing everything along. What do I have to do inwardly in my body so that it can radiate out there? Arrives in the corner of the room. And then the S with two arms crossing over, crossing over, radiating, upright, without effort, s- sensing, feeling myself inwardly, letting go, breathing, and sitting down quietly. Take this with us, what we've done, really slowly, moving slowly. We've touched something, there was an exchange, encounter, penetration, small elements that we can experience inwardly. Simone, back to you. I hope that you can hear me. I've also joined in with the eurythmy, and in this moment, from movement and sensation at the beginning, I had this feeling I built up some protection. The feeling I become tight, narrow, and then to the feeling of sending something out to the other side, and I notice it radiates and it also crosses me. And to notice then th- this picture of I want to deal with my neighbor, but sometimes I have the feeling also to be careful. And what people often describe is how good an encounter was, whether it was successful, and what remains from this encounter. That's something I can only know afterwards. What can I do so that an encounter will feel good? And what kind of play is there? What we saw in our lower arms earlier. And then with the S, this wide movement, the two arches uh, uh, along the whole of the body, starting with the head, then across the heart to the other side, then again below the belly button. Um, I had somehow it reminded me of wiping a blackboard. One moves things, and then one says, as a next step, I wipe this out. The next step, I want to go deeper. I want to enter into a different kind of communication. But everywhere there are traps, pitfalls. And I want to take you to these now. Um, I've prepared a presentation also with a view to the translation, and it helped me to imagine that we are communicating in different languages here today. And because I don't speak any Russian or Ukrainian, I found it wonderful to see the letters, the words on the slides. And I notice it helps me to know, to see the work of the wonderful translators as well. Now I'll switch. Now I have to shift this a bit. Era culture for highly sensitive people. I've got two lines here. They represent two people. They represent an encounter. And if I'm on the yellow line, the yellow person, it's somehow rounded, gentle, wavy movements. And then I look at the blue, and this person has two moments. somehow there's a bit of up and down. I don't know if the heart rate's accelerated. Is there inattention? Is there fear, anxiety, something that makes this person a bit restless? And ultimately, something happens that corrects this, which I indicated with this orange little swirly figure. Something happens, and obviously, it's possible to dissolve this in such a way that the two can move on together. So before it's a bit of two people next to each other in different moods, different perceptions of the situation. And then something happens there that they find to each other and then can move on together. It can also be the other way around, that you really move well together, then something happens here, maybe the yellow steps on the foot of the blue, and then that one moves quite differently, whereas the yellow person doesn't even notice. And I would like to explore this in more depth is this particular moment. I'll give you some questions to take along. Maybe you want to write them down, or maybe just listen into them. How do we communicate? How do we perceive each other? What do I get from what do I perceive of the other person? Or am I so strongly caught up in myself that I don't even notice there's someone? Or do I want the person I'm dealing with to be different? How do we engage with each other, and how do you feel about yourself? And we focus today on mistakes, on errors, on shortcomings. How is it when you think that you've made a mistake, stepped on someone's toes? How do you perceive yourself when you think something wasn't quite right there with what I did? And how do you perceive it when other people make mistakes? And often that people who are very sensitive are very critical with towards themselves. They suffer from the mistakes that they think they've made, which others may not even noticed. At the same time, they are very gentle and forgiving with the other person, empathizing with them. So the question is, how can one practice or get to the point that one sharpen one's awareness, that one is gentle with oneself as well in the way one does with others? Now, for many years, I've studied or worked with a model. I could imagine that many of you know this. It's called the communication square. It has 4 sides. It's been used for a long time, comes from practice. And I now place this onto this picture. The model is about the question, how do people communicate? How do messages arise? And what is what somebody says, that's these rounded bits. And on the left, that's what somebody hears. These are meant to be ears. On the right side, there are speech bubbles. So this is not about many different things. It's only about 4 possibilities that are always present. And so how is what is being said understood, and what are the responses? And I here we have the model on the left that we are talking about now, and on the right, um, where I've played with the model, but because I noticed again and again, okay, a square is fine to a certain extent, but it also um, fixes us in a question, because how do I resolve it when there are misunderstandings, if there are accusations, stagnation, if things don't move forward, and things make both people make things more difficult. This looks very dynamic, people, but yeah, we'll see at the end what this really means. So we look at this communication square. The main message is that every message has 4 sides. I'll just put it here, and I won't question it. I'm just saying it. Communication, every message has 4 sides. One side is the content, the factual content. What are we talking about? Automatically, when I speak about something, I give information on how I relate to the other person. I show something of how I see my relationship to them. Have I got a feeling that this is a good relationship, or it's a good partnership, or I have to have the feeling the other person isn't quite right, quite ready for this. So what do I express without saying it, but the other person notices it? Then I reveal a lot of myself. So there is some self-revelation. For instance, I show how safely I am rooted in the topic, but I also reveal things I don't want to reveal, and that, especially with people who are very sensitive, they can enter into these areas that a person wants to hide. They can sense into them, and they can also see more uh, than the person who communicates, because that person tries to hide that. They don't want to be discovered. And then there is the appeal side. And after many years of training uh, with the question of communication, how do we communicate? Why is the situation often so difficult? It could be so easy. Of course, we talk a lot with people, and it happens often that one says something and the other person listens out very strongly. What does this person want from me? What should I do? What should I feel? How should I be? What does this person want from me? And this appeal, this ear of that hears, what does this person want from me? That is very strong. Very briefly now, one level, the facts and data. That's often also when people say, I communicate in order to convey something. So what do we do today? I make a proposal, and so on. But the other sides are always somehow there too. What I show of myself, consciously or unconsciously, and what I express, sometimes very openly. What should you think, feel, or think? Um, that happens often in work situations. Somebody gives instructions. It happens often in meetings. Somebody says, you're not quick enough. It happens often in relationships. Somebody says, hey, come along, let's do this together. And the other person thinks, no, why am I not being asked? A small example, how explosive it can be. But I also tell you beforehand that it often works really well. Here, this is about somebody's saying Sunday afternoon, the person comes home and says, "I've just been with the neighbors. We can go across at 7 o'clock. They invited us for dinner. We are invited 7 o'clock." That's the message. And in the self-revelation, everything is okay. I think that's can we do. But the appeal is clear. We're going together and you'll come along. And then meets a reaction, really sharp, like, "What? Did you forget that I have sports tonight? What do you think? I always go to sports on a Sunday evening. I'm not coming with you. This is important for me." And inwardly, there's like a movie unrolling. Why can't that person know this? Why do they just make decisions over my head? Does she ignore what I want to do for myself? Why, why does my partner simply choose what I do with my time? So this can become very unpleasant. This example is meant to show that if we want or not, we use those four sides when we speak. We could add more, but yeah, the four are enough for now. And we also hear with those four sides. So these are the same, more or less the same size, but normally it's like this, that one or two sides, sometimes three sides, are particularly strong in the way they are heard or spoken. For instance, the content here, 7 o'clock at the neighbors, and the appeal, "You come along, we go together." So these are strong, these two sides. In the response, the self-revelation, my sport, that is important for me. That's really strong. The relationship. Why do you ignore me? Why can't you remember this? Why don't you perceive me? Almost like a cry for help. And the appeal is not, "I come with you." It is, "Perceive me. Take me seriously." So a totally different message is being heard. And if we think of the E or the fence, this question arises: how can we meet there? How can we perceive each other in such a way that we can communicate? The situation I've just described is just a separation, like a division. Leave me alone. And the question now is, who creates the message? Often the speaker simply repeats and says, "Well, but I told you," speaking even louder, repeating it, and somehow gets mixed up and and asks, "Why is that so difficult to understand? I've only said 7 o'clock at the neighbors." And if I know now, just be patient and just listen to the person who listens, who receives the message, empathize with them. And then I experience through what that person says, through their feedback, through their answer, also through the body language. Through that, I find out what I've said. And what I've said is quite simple. This is quite simple if I remember that the message doesn't come from what I say. The message arises from what the person perceives in it, what they hear, in this case, hear in it. So I find that out through the response, and that gives me uh, the way possibilities to find out, did my message arrive in the right way, or did it arrive in a totally wrong way, and how can we get that sorted out again? but ultimately it means how do I engage with the other person and distance myself from what I've said. Very often, when there are misunderstandings and disagreements, conflicts even, I ask myself, how is high sensitivity a hindrance in the situation? We said a highly sensitive person listens very well, very strongly to what the person communicating reveals about themselves. And that causes a chaos of feeling in me. Why am I not being perceived? Why am I ignored? Why am I not being seen? It has felt like an affront. Why does this person ignore me? What do they? What problem do they have with me? So it is felt as rejection, as a strictness. Sometimes it's seen as self-centeredness. Somebody just switches off, does whatever they like without consideration, the fear of missing out, and the horrible feeling that the other person wants to patronize me and makes me small. Horrible feeling. But I'll also look the other way. How can high sensitivity help? The person who gets angry, um, yeah, but the other person who feels, oh, I've done something, and now I reflect, and I don't insist on the 7 o'clock appointment, but I try to engage with the other person. I try to become elastic, flexible with myself. Okay, yeah, if I could maybe go by myself, can I respond in a laid back way and uh, distance myself from my plan? Can I look at it with a sense of humor? One has to be a bit careful because it could come across as ironic or sarcastic. Can I empathize with the other person and also admit, okay, this wasn't very good what I just done. I pushed you into a corner. I wasn't sensitive. I wasn't careful. Can I decelerate? Can I somehow stop this fire that is coming into existence? Can I ask what is between the lines and really try to build bridges by holding back, by taking myself back and trying to find out what's actually going on? Maybe somebody else said something about sports and you think, oh, you and your sport on Sunday evening, that's a bit of a pain. Um, so I give you another example, just simply to look briefly at what chances do I have. In this case, there are two angry people. Two people have an appointment. The one comes to the other's office, but is too late. The person who speaks opens the door, and the person inside is really already hyped up and says, "At last, great that you are finally there." What is that person saying? And the other person doesn't understand, has been stressed in a motorway jam, and has somehow had a stressful time, and shows that first of all, phew, wow, great, I'm here. I have to sit down. I have so much on my plate. Can you just get me a coffee, please? It doesn't signalize at all that the other person wants to start, but signalizes I want some peace first. Great potential for a chaotic situation. So we look again. Two people have an appointment. The person feels stressed. we can't do it without you. We need to do it together. I can't do it without you. So that's the relation level. Then appeal. I don't want to lose any time. So a lot of stress. The other person also know we've had an appointment and I am here after all. I didn't cancel, so that's a good thing. But the person also says about herself, I'm in stress, I need time to arrive, and also says, I'm not actually ready for this. This is so far away from me still. So that is now in the relationships level or the appeal side. This person said in the appeal, be here for me, give me time, let me breathe out. If you just gave me a coffee, that would be great. But what is the case here is that the other person is not able to receive anything, can't engage with the other person, doesn't even hear what the first person says. Okay, just move too fast with the slides. Yeah. So what comes next for those two? I'm here at the beginning with my orange swirl. If the two or one of the two doesn't uh, find a balance, there will be escalation. And I looked at this moment again of waiting, and I looked at myself. I thought, okay, I wait. At some point, I'll start looking at the clock. I become restless, and I think, why isn't that person not here? At the same time, I want to have constructive working atmosphere. And here I noticed there, when I look at the E and S we did earlier, I thought, what helps me to say goodbye to this situation, say goodbye to my mood, and to get to know my feelings so well that I know I can work with them and I can change them. What helps me to let go, to ground myself, to assume that things are, accept that things go different from expected. I pull out and I say to myself, yeah, hold back your own concerns, try and find control over myself, find my middle, my center, and to, so in order to de-escalate what would happen if I remain in this stress mode. So I can say that eurythmy helped me a lot with this, and that it also helps me if it takes a bit longer, that I realize I'm getting really upset. If I don't notice that, it will escalate. But if I notice it, how I get upset, how I lose myself, then I've lost. But if I am able to practice this point, I observe and try to be there, and I do something different. I try to feel myself again and to really get away from the automatic response. Let's have a moment here. Theodor, what do you think? Shall we have questions? You can start the presentation anytime. I really was very much involved inwardly, and I realized one doesn't usually stand above these situations. So I think this is important because it's crucial that I can't change the other person. I have no influence on them initially. But how can I work with myself, on the stress that is building up with my impatience, and where I have to say, if that happens, I don't feel myself. And then I'm cross with myself that I get so stressful, so impatient, and put pressure on others. And I noticed, if I manage to distance myself, to move to feel my body again, to feel myself again, then I have a good chance to become serene again. But I need to step away from my own program to what we agreed to do. But I also know from experience, if I manage to do that, to hold myself back, and I notice I can be honest with myself and I can say I have fear of being uh, overwhelmed by the other or ignored or not being seen. But I have to change that also, turn it around and accept that we have maybe less time for work, but at the same time we come into a dimension that is totally surprising because the other person feels accepted. This is what you mean by the chance of hypersensitivity. So I feel what is necessary. I give my own plans up. I give up on my own plans and then open a space that could make something new possible. But there's also a kind of helplessness if you notice. So, yeah, how do we get out of that? Out of the situation that our hypersensitivity is in our way, it's a hindrance. How can I get away from that? That my high sensitivity or my perfectionism or my crossness or the wish that I don't want to get angry. I want to get through with my ideas and program so that this doesn't become my pitfall. And I noticed myself that when I notice that that it can help to turn the situation around. And in this movement helps me warming, grounding, going into my feet, stretching, just stretching my arms up and upwards wide so that I have an R feeling and my heart begins to beat in a way that I can feel myself and that I then can enter into an area that helps me to accept what's happening. And although I'm clear about what we planned together, engage with the other person because that other person doesn't hear me at all. So you give up your own self or what you want. Yes, I give up what I want in favor of what we do together, knowing that I'm not going to lose myself in this, but that I feel myself. Okay, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I've experienced my own despair so strongly during your presentation. You can go on. So Simone goes back to her presentation, which is close to the end. Because I can't see you, I don't see your response. I'm blind. I talk into some black hole, but nonetheless, I'm really close to you. So I go back to the presentation. So if I manage to ground myself, that's a good chance. And I noticed for myself, in this summer, I did the high sensitivity course and I've done things before with eurythmy for you. So I realized this is my repertoire, my own attentiveness. I can deal with my feelings. I'm not exposed to them. I can work with them. And it's just as I learned as a scientist to think very complex things, I've learned in recent years to deal with very complex emotional situations and to turn them around. So that's what I said earlier. What is in the way is the fear to to fail, to not find the beginning, to get lost. So this brings me to this really energetic picture that looks like a record that uh, turns really fast. What if we blame each other for mistakes or for things that went wrong and so on? If we don't know how to deal with mishaps, or if we insist on our own opinion and on what I said and say, but I keep saying that, why don't you remember that is an energy that is there, but if it explodes outwardly and dominates us, then I cannot enter into communication. So where is my chance of using this energy so that we can enter into communication? The picture changes then. If on the one hand I say, there is the relationship, and I come to the point that is yellow, orangey there, if I notice at this point, I care for you, and for this situation that we are in now, I try to find myself in such a way that I can respond to you wherever you are right now. I've done a lot of work with clients who are really angry. That's important to say, I accept you who you are. These two red lines, these upright lines. If you imagine the feet at the bottom, the arms at the top, I can stretch, I can ground myself, I can make contact with the earth, and I try with my feet to have good contact with my feet. I put my hands on each other, on my heart, and I arrive within myself. And to give myself that time, that is important. I've tried to stretch my hands up really slowly to go up there and notice I can not only lose things, but I can also receive something. There is something streaming into me that gives me strength. The same from below, through contact with the ground. I can feel myself grounded. And here, where the blue is, I can be very mobile, enter into the situation. I can say, okay, come in. I realize something's wrong. I listen to you first. I make a coffee, but I can also say, but in 10 minutes we need to start. So this thread we mustn't lose. If I let go of it, we won't do anything. But I can say, oh, this is different from what we planned or what I expected, but I'm playful. I can move. These are all E's and S's that meet here. So that is this quality of encounter that is good for both sides. If they enter, if they're open to each other, usually the other person can then relax, will respond positively, and they be cooperative. And those green bits, like feathers, like seeds, they fly around. They don't fly away. I can say, I can take myself back. I can be there for you. I don't have to be afraid that something is taken away from me. I don't have to fear that you dominate me. I don't have to be afraid that we can't get to what we wanted to do. But what I'm doing is I'm paving the way so that we can enter into intuition, that through this mutual engaging with each other, we can come to a level where we can suddenly speak in a totally different way because the other person notices somebody is perceiving me with in my situation and can let go. I describe this to someone as potentials that are set free that can also be astonishing because there is potential now for something totally different to happen that can arise from the space of around the heart. So that brings us to intuition and inspiration, holding back, taking oneself back to, especially for hypersensitive people who have such a fear of not being perceived, but they can now learn that because they are so susceptible, they can find out what happens if they consciously hold back in order to release the heart forces, to let them radiate out, and to come to intuition, because the whole stressful situation that was there before led to the misunderstanding, led to the unpleasant situation, and I can let go of that too. So now I switch this off again. Theodor, maybe you can join me. So if there are any questions, Helga, you wrote something about touchy people. I think that was mentioned. So at the moment, I just noticed you said one sentence, I accept you as you are. And I thought, that sounds like in church. I thought, is that serious? That may have to do with my own biography and my own education. I come from client-centered counseling and the non-directed conversation. Carl Rogers, somebody writes in the chat. And and I did a lot of counseling in agriculture, so social work with people with addictions, people with um, situations that are quite common. If you come into a home that is existentially threatened, that is not one where you would say, "Oh, this is a pleasant place to be." It's not tidy. So people are in a survival mode, and it's not easy for others to enter into the situation. I'm totally there for you inwardly. If as a consultant, it's easy to do that, it's part of my job, but privately, um, yeah, this is the moment where I asked myself, why can I do it in my work, professional work, and why is it so hard in my private life? And yeah, I think I'm really serious. It is liberating. This letting go of oneself is really liberating. And also to notice that it sets something free in the other person, that they can sort themselves out, that they can find themselves again, and then we can engage with each other. I had to practice this for many years. I'm still practicing it. I need to practice it. But as an attitude, I've really internalized it. And I know all the other sides. These are very profound words in your presentation. And you also try to relate this to hypersensitivity, and especially with the pictures at the end, what all things that are needed in order to balance the situation. But there I suddenly thought, yeah, maybe that's the field of hypersensitivity, because there's so much interfering with each other. And if one manages to, and if one is hypersensitive, that it doesn't fix you somehow, but if you still realize you need this flexibility so that those threads can move, and then the hypersensitive person could unfold their great potential. That is certainly what, as a participant of the course, I became very much aware of. There are moments where I don't manage it, where I notice my own striving for perfectionism is in my way. I build up as like a shield of protection, and then I noticed eurythmy, especially for these kind of topics, helped me. Like with the E earlier, I don't stop here, I continue to that side, but I don't lose it. Or in the S, I widen my own space and I can move within that space. I've learned to move in that space, and I can look into other directions without having this fear of losing myself, of losing my focus. So that makes me much more flexible. And I thought it was fascinating uh, how I managed, how I noticed, particularly if I stumble into a situation where I am close to making mistakes, where I develop fears, where I don't want people to notice. Um, and that those situations, it helps me to find to myself and to be able to create a space that lets me be open, and but I can hold my own within it. Um, Before you said three wonderful sentences, I tried to quote them. I wrote them down. I accept you as you are. I don't have to be afraid. I trust that we come into intuition. Maybe I add one more thing. I am I am very vulnerable. Though, but but I also notice if I feel okay with that, if I feel well, then I experience miracles in my encounter with people, because suddenly we speak about totally different things. People entrust things to me that they are astonished themselves that they are talking about them, because they notice I can speak about my sensitivity in particular, because, yeah, where do I have places where I can speak about hypersensitivity? And people notice that one looks for ways carefully, and yeah, one finds there's something that holds me and I can speak. And often people use their body much more when they speak than use their hands more. And there also I noticed eurythmy helped me to expand my own forms of expression. Thank you, Simone. This is wonderful. Opens up perspectives for all of us. A very warm thank you on behalf of everyone who is here. And now we have some beautiful um, feedback in the chat of people who experienced your presentation as healing. Thank you very much. I think I will read those messages later in peace. And thank you very much for listening, for being open. It's usually a bit adventurous on Zoom. On the one hand, one feels connected, but at the same time, I'm sitting here in Stuttgart in Germany in my office. I look into my laptop and I can only sense you. I've brought a little good night treat. If I have courses over several days, it's often about practicing perceiving, and I like to, in the days before I start, I like to write little poems, and I've brought along one of them for you. Maybe you want to hold your hands together in front of your heart, maybe form a chalice, lean back, and connect with these words and take them into the night. Miracle of life in the grip of freedom, earthy stars, permeated with light and clothed in the wind, weaving sea of blossoms. With the ground, with the soil and the fruit, time to ripen, letting go, connecting, breathing freedom, united with the earth. Thank you very much to all of you. You all know that on Sunday we'll start a 10-week new project, a course on hypersensitivity. And this conference with you has led me to change the name of the course inwardly. And I've developed these stickers that you can put on your chest, because I noticed suddenly we announced it as hypersensitivity as a chance, discover your strength. And we've prepared this for half a year. And we will do it in German and English. But there was a hesitancy. But when we announced it as a certificate course, there were more. And then I thought, if you do a certificate course on hypersensitivity, high sensitivity, there's more interest. So you don't have hundreds of people or thousands as I expected if you just announce it as a high sensitivity course. And I then wondered, what does this mean? And when we worked in this conference, it became more am I ever more clear. I don't need therapy. I have problems with it, but or challenges rather than problems. And then I I I inferred from that that I want to get away from stress, but I want to go towards high sensitivity. And okay, when we offered a certificated course, there was more interest. So I realized it's somehow about certification. And so I certify myself as a high sensitivity person, and that one could meet this high sensitivity by saying, I get to know it. I get to know its many layers, and then I can walk around with this label. I'm highly sensitive, sensitive and highly certified. To carry this into the world, that's a new idea I had, and I think it's great. So anyway, I put this sticker on, but I will only issue the certificate after the 6 weeks. So any questions? Are there any questions? In that case, I will speak about this inner cosmos, this intuition that Simone also spoke about earlier. You accept yourself as you are, then I don't have to be afraid that we don't manage, and I can trust I'm not that we can enter into the space of intuition, that intuition will come increasingly over time. And I invite those of you who wish to join in, and it's only the beginning of our exercise, health exercise that has been with us since the beginning of Eurythmy for you. This beginning is very simple, but it's also very touching. As usually, start by feeling your hands. Feel those hands are already forming an E, the touch. And if I now bring them towards me, I take time to arrive in myself, but something is coming out. So there's a crossing over there too. And then I can let go and receive this double stream. I take time to arrive in myself. And then always let your breathing respond. So we can't always go straight for the goal. Sometimes before it needs being in front, being at the back, and you're with me. Everything happens by perceiving. I don't do anything. I just perceive. So I turn my hands so that the back of the hands look backwards. I feel my back, my shoulders, my lower back. And then I see, how can I feel myself so that I'm pulled backwards, and then I let go again. I stand out of the center, and simply by put the back of my arm, of my hand, my actual back, my my the back of my head, by feeling them, that supports me. And then I let go mindfully, and I'm in the front. If you want to be in the front, you can also feel how you go forwards. And then I return to the center. But that doesn't really meet what is in there. If when we are forward, then something streams from the heart down, and when you start feeling your pelvis, your legs, your knees, your calves, I'm here in the front and alone, and I feel this strength inwardly that holds me. Then letting go, come to the center, let the breathing respond. So the two, once more, with this principle, being at the back and only feel, sense downwards. And then breathe and let go. So we enjoy how we can let the arms rise without gravity. We stand, feel our uprightness. How can I sense my body, my arms, so that they rise by themselves, go up and above me, cross like in the extension of the arms, like with an E. I radiate upwards and I can sense where they cross over the star above me, my star. Then slowly I let the arms come down as if there was water below me. I can see how a star is mirrored below, and I let them go to radiate towards the star below me in the water. That appeared in Simone's poem, Freedom in the Earth. And then let go briefly, maybe once more, weightlessly. My star radiating above me. There it is. My star. And radiate towards it so it can light up below me. I perceive it. And then let go. And now the third, where I want to get, if you have your hands, let your hands stream calmly from your heart outwardly. And imagine you feel like wings. What are they like? I can feel swan wings, my angel. And now very calmly bring it in and cross your hands on your chest. Feel how the lower arms press on each other, and let that wander into your chest towards your heart. In me. And then let go. And if I say my angel in me, and I know how big that angel is, and I have this point in there, then it can like go on, and I notice the space is so big that the angel can be as big within me as I felt it around me. And in this space of experience, that is here, that is what we explore in our life practically. And that we can trust that space. And as Simone says, I don't have to be afraid. this is the path we take in those 10 weeks. Once more, feeling out there, my angel. Such a great chap. Use your body to feel it. And then in me, take time, sense into your body through this place where the hands touch. Go into there. And how big is that space? It is so big. Imagine what is possible there. I don't have to be afraid. I can be my angel in me. So that's what I wanted to show you. I felt like showing you out of what resonates here increasingly with us. And that lives in our course because we, we prepare the ground with with the topic of strength and calmness. The that's where our inner life begins. Where it begins to live inwardly. The depth of feeling we have that can also be problematic. And once we've built this ground, then we can have, use compassion, perception, practicing a sense of wonder. Those areas resonate and form a new ground. That is the path that we are working on together in the course to